Chapter 31, The Council. That next morning we were awakened by a knock on the door by one of the council members. He introduced himself as Frank. He informed us that he would return at 9 a.m. and then escort us to the council meeting. We then had a couple of hours to prepare and collaborate on what we would say at that meeting. Frank showed up back at our room after breakfast, and we were shown the mapping and the floor plans for the complex while finishing our coffee. We were shown the most important parts of the base, including where our friends were working. This whole base was exactly what humans would need on an expedition across our galaxy, and at least for a long-term sustained journey, for comfort, for a comfortable colonization. We apparently were now capable of such a large craft, a mothership. Next, as we walked about, we were shown the parts of the base we had not seen yet. Then, after our tour, we were shown into the council chambers and the meeting hall, and the meeting began. There, they covered some of their laws to show us how important they had made basic human rights, and they discussed the next moves they would make in their recovery of society's conveniences, along with any normal people. The first after that was most precious. It was knowledge, then food, art, and tools. One of those tools discussed was the need for invisibility on a personal level so that no normal lives would be lost during their excursions, but that wasn't going to happen yet. It had to be created still. Soon it was our turn to speak. The council introduced Amy first, and I formally, after the clapping, calmed down. I would be first. Amy and I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to speak to you and your enduring faith in starting this new base and colony. We have gone over some of the history during the time we were gone to catch up, and now let's not make the same mistakes that they in power did in the past. I looked at some of the links in the YouTube archives that Carl suggested we looked at, and Carl's blog for one. These helped greatly. New energy paradigms and some of the rest of the interviews of his acquaintances were quite insightful. Then the UN briefing on alien God arrivals. So now I made him watch that on the big screen. One of the things I found interesting in this denial of global warming by naysayers that said the weather at the end of 2013 wasn't related to global warming, and that there was no danger with links related to that. That started certain United Nations treaties that were based on greed, because these studies on global warming presented by the WHO and the World Economic Forum were all lies and deceit because of greed. And of course, now we know that it was all lies. The conspiracies were not, in fact, conspiracies. The sun was actually cooling down from NASA's sun studies from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, Ulysses, etc. The cooling made it look like there wasn't a threat. The sun had repercussions related to a cooling period, but when it returned to its normal cycle, the Earth continued to heat up once again, as we all know now. Then it happened with a renewed vengeance. All of you here have waited for 7 or more years for Amy and I to return on the promise of a new Earth to live on and colonize. When we sent that message as we left Kepler E, as you see on the screen, you now know that it was possible to accomplish the greatest exodus of all time, and as you see now is very probable. There's one thing to consider, and that is that it is already populated by people from here who haven't a clue that we are going to colonize it now, as they, like Amy and I, did not know what happened here till we arrived back on Earth. So the same thing's going to happen. They wanted us back, and we're going to surprise them. As far as we knew, and they were told by us on Kepler E, we were still going to try to save the Earth, which is now a hopeless situation. So this calls for a new proposition relating to those whom Kepler E belongs to, as we have a limited time here, since Amy and I have now learned and logically understand that this planet is doomed. I would like to introduce my wife Amy at this time. Amy took over since she had the greatest personal contact with the native Keplerites. Then she started. I want to thank the council and all attending here, and those of you that are watching here while on duty, for this opportunity to present the true information and things that you haven't learned yet about this new Earth, like planet Kepler E, and about traveling beyond the speed of light. As you know, you received the message that we sent as we passed the light barrier, which in a sense was an experiment. That proved to you and us that a message would travel at double that speed, since radio waves travel at the speed of light to begin with. That's why you received it about 7 years ago or so, instead of many more years. And that changed the technology and the physics here that you have worked on and improved. So kudos to everyone here. Well done. So now to the meat of the problem. The Keplerites were taken there by an unknown force, but we know what that force was. Over 300 years ago, we suspect that force to be God, and that explanation is the only one that makes sense. There was a clamor in the audience, and Amy had to regain control as she waved them down to quiet him. I then worked on my laptop and showed the scenery of that planet on the big flat screen behind the podium. I showed them all the beauty of the land and the creatures, then the people who had the planet given to them. As everyone oohed and awed and then clapped, Amy started again. As I stopped showing Kepler E, I began with a view of Kepler F. As we approached it first, after our deceleration around its sun, we ran into this one first. We call it Kepler F. F for fail. Before our discovery on Kepler E, we experienced this from Kepler F. She spoke solemnly now. I then showed them what we seen there with the warning that was displayed in our ship. It then got real quiet, as if there wasn't a soul in sight. We need to know and explore Kepler F thoroughly so we can know for sure what is going on there, as well as what took place there in the past. We suspect that the Greys are the fallen ones that are spoken about in all of the religious texts throughout the world and its history. From the latest known information on UFOlogy is that anyone who's had contact with them is terrified of them, and we suspect they have made KF lifeless and desolate. Everyone was mesmerized as they watched and listened intently. We feel their aim is to do the same with the Earth, and we know, as you know, now they are the ones in control of our human enemies and leaders here. From what we have learned so far, they have been implementing their agenda for centuries, as you all know. They've had many setbacks and failures till now. What they plan to do to this planet compared to what's going on now makes this look like a winter wonderland. Mike and I have 2 missions that must be accomplished now before we make our move, and that is to secure the seed bank as we learn all the new technology that we now possess and must train for, to return to KE for a second meeting with their council to secure permission for land for all of us to colonize. As you see, the creatures there are huge as well, and as far as the trees and insects, including spiders in most cases. As you have also seen, the generations of humans that have adapted to those conditions, which has given them a safe form of a slight giantism and a longer lifespans. This is what we suspect is related, and it's the planet's gravity, possibly the duration of the day and night, plus number of days around its star. We will still have to learn all we can about those anomalies. While traveling there, wrapped in the magnetic force field of our ship, we found that our extrasensory abilities have been enhanced. Mine is reading minds. Mike's ability is just about there, but mostly is telekinesis, which he is still developing. My special ability gave me an advantage to communicate mind to mind with the inhabitants, and I have found what was in their hearts. It was pure joy. They have one religion, even though there were many different aspects delivered there, but it all blended into one universal religion that all could accept based on Christianity and the greatest wisdom that all other religions possess. There isn't prejudice or hate in any one of them, and the life they lead is as satisfied as anyone could ever imagine, because it is lived as it was over 200 years ago. They live as the Native American Indians did, with just the conveniences of nature and some of the knowledge that the first colonial settlers had that they blended together. So the problem is that we just can't go there without their understanding and permission. We do not want to make the same mistakes our forefathers made, and we do not want to do to them what is being done to our home and to us, which is a takeover. They accepted some of our knowledge willingly to slowly help them to advance in science, which is a good sign. They have a great empathy for the fate of all of us and of the planet's previous peril, plus what we were trying to ensure. Here's Mike. We then switched places again. There was more clapping, and they all understood our points. That's what we read. I then started. Next, After a few more important missions here, which will be done in a few days, we will all go back to Kepler E. There, that first mission will be, can we retrieve enough material so Drew can develop invisibility into clothing that crew members can wear for safe retrieval missions in the future for Kepler E, as we secure a home world there, and for discoveries we may make on Kepler F and beyond. Amy and I will have the most important missions there, that is to go before the Parliamentary Council of the inhabitants of Kepler E to get us an approval for a mass exodus to their home world. This is one of our main priorities, as our planet is and will become an even more of a biohazard and war zone of unmentionable horror brought to us by the powers in place. When the world resets its atmosphere and the glacial period ends, the pollution that's locked up on our world will in the future be to the point still of spreading toxins and radioactivity for thousands of more years after that. It is capable of covering the globe even as time goes by. This would go on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but there is one possibility that God and Christ will intervene. For us, it seems we are blessed with one more mission. What that whole reason is still unknown to us. I refer to Matthew 24:21. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not had been seen since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. The one thing to keep in mind is that even if they, the Keplerites, do not wish us to call their world our home world, they have that right, the right to refuse us a permanent entrance, and all of us should comply to their wishes in this regard if that's their choice. If that is the outcome, then Amy and I will try to get them to at least give us a temporary base to let us land to regroup as we plan for the next journey in search of another habitable planet. We have the capabilities, and since we have one example that there are other Earth-like planets in the cosmos, the point then becomes moot, and we shall not for convenience or profit take what is not ours to take. In space travel, I would like to point out that we need to set down guidelines and rules, possibly laws, on how to interact with any people or creatures we may encounter. Amy took over. While we are there, we will look at and explore another planet in the Kepler system, which is Kepler F. This is where we suspect that the fallen ones had a home base. They were known to our ancient ancestors also, and there is a reason why right now it's desolate. We need to know what that reason is, why that home world is still active with no fallen ones on it. There's a power source there. We have to find out why. There is a relationship also, as written in Enoch, that they, the fallen entities, were kicked out of the first and the second heavens, and the fallen make their last stand in the third heaven, which is the skies on this world. The heaven in our skies on earth is their last place to make their point and last stand, as we all know now without a doubt. There will be a PDF document and recordings available on our internet that will give and show you all we have learned from our brief exploration of Kepler E and F. I added, what we find there on Kepler F is anybody's guess, but whatever it is that we find will be the final verification for us of the truth of this matter. That is what me and Amy believe. There is also a possibility that KF can be terraformed and brought back to life, but we just don't know at this time. If what we suspect is true, and they were forced off, and that hundreds of thousands of years have passed, it might just be possible that we can fix KF, but that still may take hundreds of years. This record will be set up in a couple of days before we leave on our first mission here on Earth. I now hand you back to the Prime Minister in control of our government. There was a roar and excitement, hand clapping as we left the podium. I turned and spoke to Amy as we left. Am I mistaken, or did everyone here understand the religious implications? Because as in the past, I was sure we would get some negativity, a little bit. I added, like some booze or something blurted out. I didn't hear not one bit of negativity. She smiled and added, well, if everything we know so far is right, then most people have turned back to the idea there is a God, and we maybe inadvertently or positively have verified that point, or if you will, there are no more atheists, or at least not here, and those that still must be or are definitely our enemies. She pointed metaphorically through a wall. She had a look of concern when she asked, I wonder if Drew is still an atheist. He once was. I'll have to ask him. So do you think that people here are going to have one universal belief like the Kepler Knights? All right, to answer your first question. I forgot about him, I said. Now that you have mentioned it. To answer your second question, it looks that way. Everyone seemed to be in agreement with our thoughts in our reports and communications about our findings on KE. I can't wait to get started. How about you? I don't like it here anymore, so the sooner the better, she lamented. Out there we were totally free, but back here, back home, there's a danger that is ever present that could threaten our freedom and our very lives, and possibly our sanity along with our souls. And that would happen in the worst possible way. Damnation. So being here is more frightful than anything we just went through. I grabbed her around her shoulder, she wrapped her arm around my waist, and we walked through the base, taking it all in, our new underground universe. We felt penned in, scared again. It wasn't a great feeling to be here anymore. We went back to our apartment to get started with an eagerness and determination that was unprecedented in both of our minds, so this could all be over. We both thought, but when? Next, Chapter 32, Recovery Training Mission.